I tend to eliminate right from the start these people because it means certain trouble for vendors like us because their demands show their personality. Often these demanding, "it's about me" attitudes are a major downfall in relationships and marriages. The couple refuses to pay. If you're basically going to be an asshole to vendors, there's no way you won't be an asshole to your partner at some point. Because money is a big issue and it often means it will become an issue to either of you down the road. I've seen it happen. I've even seen a couple early in my first few shooting years. It happened a lot when I was starting out because I was going for cheap while entering the industry. Because of the lack of my experience. Which means you get people who only go for cheap. Which also means they're really cheap people. And I encountered a couple who met me to pick up the pictures and they looked like they just had a really big fight before meeting me. The couple invites tons of people to the wedding dinner banquet. Chinese dinners are 8 to 10 course dinners and are quite expensive per seat. And there are tables empty. We're talking each table of 10 people costs around $2,000. When the banquet begins, the couple splurges super big time on the wedding and I enter their house and I see them actually living as simpletons or from very humble backgrounds. I know immediately it's going to go downhill from here with the debt they're already carrying into their marriage. Good luck to paying off the $100K wedding before even buying your house. House and car here in Singapore is impossibly expensive. At least $100K for a car and between $500K minus 1 meter for a house. Go look it up. Green flags. The couple makes the wedding about their guests. The couple meets every person and thanks them and people can't wait to help them and support them through the wedding. I can't emphasize this point anymore. These guys have something great about them that everyone sees and they're going to last for sure. The couple accommodates every vendor and pays on time. They know what they're doing. When I see the couple encounter a really massive screw-up, how they react is really the deal breaker for me. I instantly knew they were going to last. If they could be cool through a massively big day in their lives, they'd be cool when rocky stuff happens. I might have more later. I'll come back to edit if I think of them again. The disclaimer. They don't often are a hard and fast rule to whether they stay or break. But the TL doctor is if they are assholes and think about themselves. They often crack later on at each other. Not a wedding photographer, but my parents' wedding video is a tell-all story. At the cake cutting, my mom had specifically asked my dad not to put cake on her face, which is usually a tradition. Dad did it anyway. Mom smacked him across the face. Dad said, "Duck this," and stormed out of the reception. They had a 20-year rocky marriage of lies and infidelity, and are finally officially divorced. The cake cutting really seems to be a good rule of thumb for a relationship. Video editor here. I've had my fair share of wedding videos back then. Red flags. One partner is having a lot of fun, dancing and mingling, while the other is mostly sitting down. They aren't smiling except when taking photos. The vows are very fluffy or almost selfish. Bonus if the counterpart has something very short and not as emotional. Green flags. They can't keep away from each other. Laughing during the first dance, at the aisle, cake, speeches, etc. I know maybe cheesy for some, but themed weddings. Not a photographer, but I make a lot of engagement rings. It's actually really simple. If they're nice to each other, and nice to me and my staff, they're going to do well. If they're short-tempered, rude, pushy, etc., it's a sign they don't really want to be there. Not a photographer, but have been a wedding makeup artist for a decade. For me, I don't often meet the husband, so this is more my observation of the bride. I have a feeling my face looks like I'm trying to smile during a diarrhea attack while I'm thinking, "You poor thing," about the hubby. Red flags. The bride already trashed on mimosas at noon. Bride having a meltdown about stupid stuff, like seating arrangements. Mother-in-laws that refuse to even sit next to each other to get makeup done. Bride talking smack about hub's family. Bridal party fighting with each other. Green flags. They had Dick's Burgers and a keg for the food, drink. Super laid-back people. When literally everything was going wrong, the bride and family were laughing and hugging and sorting it out. Like caterer didn't bring enough food. DJ didn't show. Bride made a playlist on her phone of her hub's fav music. And then my fav. They were both Harry Potter fans. The pre-ceremony gift and card, they gave each other the exact same gift and card. It was sweet as hell. I'm not a wedding photographer, but I had my own intuitions about a couple once that turned out right. I went to a wedding with my girlfriend at the time a few years ago. She and I had only been together for about 6 months, so it was actually the first time I had met either one of them this year. I didn't say anything to my girlfriend at the time, because I didn't know them at all aside from stories she told me. But I felt like they wouldn't last very long. He went around and tried to get time with everyone, but every so often I would see him with her and she would kind of not even acknowledge that he was there very much. When I walked past her one time on the way to grab a beer, she was bragging to her friends about how much money the dress cost her and how he wanted her to get a cheaper one, but she wouldn't have it. At one point of the night, I was outside smoking with some of the other guests and he came out the back and asked to bum a cigarette. He was one of those types of people that only smokes when they are drunk, which apparently wasn't that often for him since he was doing his residency at a hospital. So he was always really busy. It was like he was deathly scared of her and not like in a playful way. It didn't surprise me when about a year later they got divorced. Apparently, she just kind of was taking advantage of him, staying home all day. She didn't work, spending thousands of dollars ordering clothes and shoes online using his money and credit cards she took out for theme this year. I used to be a photojournalist and shot the occasional wedding either as a wedding present to friends or for extra cash to buy more gear. None of my very few clients are divorced somehow, but I did try to pick up some work hanging out in front of Toronto City Hall the week after gay marriage was legalized in Canada. Just as my friend and I walked up, a couple came out in full 70s tuxedo and puffy wedding dress, yelling at each other while the groom tried desperately to get his ring off. A very angry-looking older couple followed them out pushing a baby stroller and muttering something in a foreign language. I was a wedding photographer for many years in the O. It was pretty easy to tell which couples were going to last and which ones would soon be divorced. The main behavior differentiating the two was whether they were on the same team, helping each other and lifting each other up in the face of the inevitable problems and stress that come with weddings. Good couples tackle problems together. At my parents' wedding, the photographer said to my grandmother, "I've seen a lot of couples and I know which ones will stay together. These two, they're gonna stay together." Then 3 years later that photographer killed his wife. Wedding videographer here had a couple fly us out to Iceland for their engagement shoot. Now the first couple of days were fine and everything looked okay. But in Iceland, some lodging options aren't very luxurious. The groom chose to book what was essentially a tiny bunkhouse, the ones meant for those summer camps, and the bride lost it and complained the whole night. Most of our plans fall through because they start arguing in front of a beautiful, solitary glacier. For 2 hours, our team can hear them yelling at each other half a mile away because there is literally no one else around for miles. Later on, I learned that they broke up a month before the wedding.